All right, welcome back to the show. My name is Chad, and if you caught my coverage at New York Comic Con, then we had a chance to briefly talk with Atlas Comics Seaboard and Stephen Paul, and he's back to have a more intimate conversation with less crowd noise. So let me bring him in and let's find out more about him and what he's been up to since Comic Con. How's it going, Stephen?
Hello, Chad again.
It's a lot quieter this time.
My God, I was going to say, and look, you look the same age. You haven't aged.
Well, thank you. So before we get talking about the revival of Atlas Comics, tell me a little bit about yourself, about what you do, and about your history with comic books as a reader and a fan.
Okay. So I grew up in New York. I was originally born in the Bronx, grew up mostly in Queens and then Manhattan. I started as a child actor when I was like 6 years old. I started doing modeling and then television commercials in New York City, and I just had a love for it. So I started writing very, very young. About 9 years old, I started writing. So by the time I was 12 years old, and I was acting in a theater piece that the novelist Kurt Vonnegut wrote. Vonnegut and I became friends, and he endorsed me at that time as the youngest playwright in the world at 12 years old, because I wrote a play called The Pipsqueaks, and they wrote about me in the New Yorker magazine, again endorsed by Kurt. And as I was saying, I just had such a love for entertainment, all of it, that I bought some videotape equipment again when I was 12, when nobody knew what videotape equipment was, and started writing, producing, and directing. And anytime I was acting with a fellow actor, I would drag him in and say, hey, come on, let's be on my video. And simultaneously, I did have a comic book collection. I can't swear that they were the Atlas comic book collection, but I loved reading comic books as a kid, as I think most kids did. So I kind of grew up with that, and comic books are, a wonderful journey for all of us into our imagination, because has these beautiful visuals which can stimulate you. And I always loved our little things above it and all of the writings and, them acting, so to speak, between each other and telling you the stories and stuff. So I grew up loving comic books. And I had an entrance, call it, into the film comic book world with Marvel. A fellow by the name of Avi Arad, who at the time when I first met him was really a toy inventor, and I had created a brand called Baby Geniuses about babies that talk, could fight. There was like this whole world amongst the babies. So I created that, and Avi did the toys for me at Toy Biz. And when Marvel Comics at that time, and this is a long time ago, I'm thinking must be 20 years ago, when that company had problems and went into bankruptcy, Avi and his partner, Ike Promoter, took that company out of bankruptcy, and we had a relationship. So, I helped introduce him to people in Hollywood, and we started developing the Ghost Riders together and some other ones. And so I got to go on that journey, making Ghost Rider with Nicolas Cage, and seeing the sort of birth of the new Marvel, the way they've done everything. So that's been an exciting thing for me to have been as part of that journey. And now I'm having this excitement of relaunching Atlas Comics.
So I know we talked a little bit about it at New York Comic Con, but tell us a little about Atlas, the history of Atlas Comics, and relaunching it, and what you're doing to bring that back.
So it's a fun story, the history of Atlas, and I'll give you a little insight into it. So, and I might get the dates a little off, but I'll get pretty close to everything. In like 1939, there was a fellow by the name of Martin Goodman, and he had a bunch of companies in New York City, and one was a comic book company. It was called Timely Comics. And around that same time, one of his relatives, who I think was his nephew, maybe second removed, wanted to come work for him, so he put him in the mailroom, and that was Stan Lieber, who eventually changed his name to Stan Lee. And then they changed the name of the comic book company from Timely Comics to Atlas Comics. I think it was about the 50s. And in the 60s, they changed it to Marvel Comics. And in the 70s, Stan Lee went to the uncle, Martin, and said, it's a little piece of your empire, and it's so important to me. Would you sell me the company? So Martin agreed, with the understanding that his son, Chip, would stay in the company and continue working. So Stan put together the financing, got the company, and I think about a year later, he fired Chip, and I think this upset Martin Goodman. And he says, well, we're going to start Atlas Comics again, and we're going to put Marvel out of business. So he put Stan's brother, Larry Lieber, as one of the heads of the company with his son Chip. And then he says, go over to Marvel and tell them I'm back. Get all the guys, we're putting them out of business. We're going to give them a run for their money. Go to DC, get those guys as well. So they did. They went and got all of the famous guys, Stephen Ditko, Chaykin, everybody that you can think of. And in a short period of time, I think it was like within 2 years, they were doing more comics then than probably both those two companies together. So that is Atlas. It's Atlas of the 70s. And, that company was handed down to Martin's son, Chip, who handed it down to his grandson, Jason, who then, when I heard this story, I went, wow, this is an extraordinary story. Is it true? I didn't know if it was real or not. And I got together with Jason, and sure enough, it was true. And Jason was very possessive over the company and the IP. They had done some publishing back in the 70s. They did some publishing along the way, but they weren't doing that much with it. And he didn't want to let the company go. He kind of was trying to keep it like a treasure chest. And, we became friendly, and I showed him, what I had done and that I wanted to help relaunch it and start that adventure together. So we became partners on it. And here we are. That was the relaunch 50 years later.
Nice. And so, as with the revival of Atlas Comics, what are, properties are you working on developing for them?
Well, what's fun is it's really a whole treasure chest. So there's all sorts of wonderful characters in there, and it's great to discover them right now. So, we're working on a number of them to develop them out for movies, potential television series, animation, do merchandising in connection with all of that. We're working on Devilina, the sister of Satan, who didn't know that she was the sister of Satan. So it's a sort of coming of age story to find out who she is, and she goes on that adventure. We're working on Grim Ghost, who's kind of a soul collector, working for Satan, but has better standards than Satan, so doesn't really want to collect every soul, and there's this conflict between them. It's very, very interesting one. So there's a number of them right now that we're developing out, but there's so many interesting characters, that are some per se, which would be superheroes, some that are not, just regular interesting, characters like Lomax, the police officer, a tough, gritty New York police officer, Sergeant Stryker, he's a great one. And there's this one, Planet of the Vampires, great, another one, this fantastic planet that you find all the girls are just absolutely gorgeous, wonderful, nice people, but they just happen to be vampires. So so just so many fun ones to go on this journey, discovering and seeing what we can do with them.
So how has your, experience in, with film and stuff helped with this process of, revitalizing Atlas Comics?
Well, I have an expertise of putting movies together, being able to, hire writers, directors, filmmakers, financing them. So, obviously that experience, allows me, to go on an adventure where most people would not be able to. The same thing on television, and the same thing in, merchandising. I've been involved with a lot of different types of merchandising, either where we've done merchandising in connection with a movie or whatever that we're doing, or that I've bought the rights from somebody based on a toy like Robo Sapien, which I did, or based on Bratz, which I did, or Tekken, the video game, which I did, or Ghost in the Shell, based on the comic book, making that into a movie. So I've crossed these boundaries going back and forth, and I think it's great, which is what originally Marvel wanted to do when they were first conceiving making movies. They saw the movies really as television commercials to sell their toys. They weren't really thinking about it as, oh, we'll make a lot of money in the movie business. Then they got excited because they started to make money in the movie business. They went, wow, there's a lot of money in this movie and television business. And then they started doing both. But initially, that's not the way that they were approaching it.
Mm-hmm. So, how are you, I guess, attracting, the talent to help you guys with the comic books?
Yeah, so it's little early days for, per se, directors and actors, but right now we're working with screenwriters. So we have a number of screenwriters working with us, and a team that I've assembled, my creative team, where there's a half dozen of us that are working with the writers, and and now starting to do on the merchandising, et cetera, et cetera. And as soon as we get the screenplay that we're feeling pretty good about, which we're getting close on 2 of them right now, then we will start working with directors and start putting a cast together and see who the right ones would be for the actors. And we have to think long term also, because it's the start of a per se universe. And what's also interesting about Atlas, when Martin Goodman, Chip Goodman, and Jeff Rovin and Larry Lieber, when they first sat together, they had a plan to make a universe. When Marvel and DC did it, they were never thinking about a universe. They would just create characters and eventually figuring ways of pulling everybody into a universe. When they sat with Atlas of the 70s, I have the copy of the original one that Jeff Rovin wrote up, and then he was planning out the actual universe, how they would connect each other. So it's sort of an organic universe in Atlas Comics of the 70s.
So, with superheroes being, I don't know if they reached the peak in, like, with movies, but there's how do you how are you going to kind of keep that genre, in the spotlight?
So first of all, superhero comic books / movies / television. I don't think it has reached its peak. It has reached a peak in the sense that it's become so big, and almost every other movie was a superhero film, but I think it's not like it is over. It's like, oh, well, there's been too many of it, because I think if you look, the superhero phase has already gone back, I don't know how many years, to even think about the Superman television series that they had when we were really, really young, or even before we were born, or that you were born and stuff. So it's, it's always around. People love the idea of superheroes. That's why I think Comic-Con is so successful. People get to dress up and see the superheroes in themselves, because everybody, is a superhero. Everybody wants to be a superhero. There are different images of who we are, who the other person should be. So that's all wonderful. And when we're in the media of movies, it always comes down to, we have to make good movies. You can't just expect that people are going to run to a movie because it's a superhero movie, or, there's so much special effects or visual effects and stuff. At the end of the day, we as filmmakers must make good stories, stories that are compelling for an audience, that gets you vested into it and with the characters. So that's upon us as the filmmakers to do. And I think that, you know, if we can combine those things together, like I just said, you know, there will always be a business, you know, even in the superhero business. Now, with all of that said, we are not starting our universe as a superhero universe. Ours is much more grounded. We are, you know, Atlas of the 70s. They're all sort of grounded characters. We're in the initial phases of them all. They're not flying around with superhero strengths. Some of them are discovering who they are and what their strengths might be, you know, and we will maybe get to there in, you know, a certain period of time, but we're much more grounded, edgy. I'm going to call it darker, good humor, you know, and maybe even sexier than, you know, most superhero films. That's where we are at the moment.
And which of the properties that you are, you know, currently working on reviving sticks out as, you know, one of your favorites or one you want to see, I guess, succeed?
Well, some of the ones I just mentioned, I really love the idea. I love the idea of Devilina. I love the idea of Grim Ghost. I love Lomax. I love Sergeant Stryker. I love the Phoenix. I love Iron Jaw. Another great one, you know. So all of the ones I've been mentioning, they're, you know, Hands of the Dragon, these two brothers, another cool. So there are a lot of them that we have, you know. So, you know, we're starting slowly, methodically. We're having fun with it. As you saw, we did a deal also with Amigo, with Marty, you know, one of the originals, which was great. We had him at Comic-Con. We had a good time together, Marty and I. He's, you know, done some action figures already just to get it sort of going for us. You know, we took, you know, five characters and he's done them, and that was great. You know, and we had a few of the original guys at the Comic-Con.
I think I mentioned when we were talking, the three of us were talking at the show that growing up, I had a lot of the Nego characters, and my parents sold them, and now it's like, ah.
Oh. I think back
So.
to same. I had all these comic books, and I go, "What happened to these comic books?" I remember I had this literally chest. It was literally a big chest with all sorts of comic books in it, and I'm trying to think back. When did we lose it? What happened to those comic books? You know, I'm hoping that somewhere one of my relatives are going to say, "Oh, by the way, I don't know if you remember, but when you were 14 or whatever, you brought this chest over and you left it." I'm hoping one day we finally.
Well, I had a storage unit with full of comic books and toys from my childhood, such as GI Joe, Transformers, He-Man, and my wife wants me to get rid of them. But
Yeah, funny. Teen Titans. Love Teen Titans.
Yeah.
Richie Rich.
So, as a comic book reader, are there any writers that you would like to work with? You know, as you do this endeavor.
Yeah, there are a lot of writers, you know, that we think are so talented. We've met with so many. We have a few working right now, and I've got my eyes on other ones as well. And then there's filmmakers, you know, great directors who, you know, again, that are in my consciousness at the moment that I'm thinking about that we want to bring on. So I don't want to mention just names as of yet, but you know, that'll be the next phase, hopefully, of finding, you know, the right ones who want to help mount this, that, you know, see it the same way that we see it and get as excited as we get about it. I'll share a story if I may. I'll share a story. So when we were developing Ghost Rider, remember we had a dinner that we organized. We were in the middle of writing. It was Steve Norrington at that time was going to direct it. This was the original starting point. It was Steve Norrington supervising a script with David Goyer. And I announced it that we were doing these. We were going to do Ghost Rider, and Goyer was writing. And we arranged dinner. Nobody knows this story. Okay, this is an exclusive for you. Okay, you ready? And we had dinner at that time with Johnny Depp, because I was thinking Johnny Depp would be the right Ghost Rider. And then we had this wonderful dinner, and he was really nice. It was Avi Arad, myself, and Johnny Depp, and we're talking and stuff, and he gave us his agent, that we should call his agent. We did call his agent, and it came out in this article that, you know, we're talking with Johnny Depp, and then I want Johnny Depp. And then Steve Norrington got a phone call on his voicemail, and he calls me. He says, Steve, he says, I got the strangest phone call from Nick Cage. He's, I think it's Nick Cage. He says, it says I'm Nick Cage. He says, and I'm the ghostwriter, and I'm ready to commit today with or without a screenplay because I'm the ghostwriter. So there you go. Who knows who will be part of this adventure?
So do you currently read any comic books?
I'm reading all the Atlas comics over and over now.
Okay.
Yes. Funny, I'm on airplanes and I'll have these comic books. I actually have the original comic books with me from the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just take a few of them with me, and I'll take a dozen with me all the time. And I like to just go through it, make notes, and think about it. And I'm picturing people watching me reading these comic books. They must be saying, what's this old guy doing, reading a comic book?
I know when I used to travel on airplanes, I would, that's when I got a lot of my comic book reading done. So I would be, I had my little messenger bag full of comic books, and so you're in good company.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
So, is there anything else that maybe we haven't touched on so far that you wanted to make sure
but we are getting it launched. We launched ourselves, as I said, at Comic-Con. We've started to do some of the action figures. We're developing out now the screenplays, and I'm expecting to get our first movie into production this year. So that's exciting for me. And next year, so 26, would be the release of our first feature film, which would sort of help launch now our new Atlas called Universe. And stay tuned, because we'll keep you informed of who will be on that journey with us, who will be the director, who might be the first actor we come on, because as we now think of our actors, we have to think of long-term, somebody that will want to hopefully be part of this universe for many years to come, that we can make sequels, and who will join in other movies. Like if Devilina is our first movie, we have the Grim Ghost inside Devilina. We have Phoenix inside. We have Lomax, all making guest appearances. So we will need those people, even though we intend to make feature films just on those characters as well. But we need to be finding our actors who are the ones to embrace and do those characters, hopefully for a long time to come. Because as you fall in love with a character, you then love the actor that brings that character to life. So you want to have it as long as possible. They have done it where they've switched it out, after a certain amount of movies. But it always goes, oh, I've lost that fellow, my friend. And then you fall for a new one, which is fine. And
Mm-hmm.
you start that journey again.
Going back to New York Comic Con, how was the reception that you felt that the attendees there that stopped by the Atlas booth? And it was a very nice booth. It was right there in the center.
It was so nice to see, because there was multiple generations of people who knew about Atlas, and there were some fathers there with sons or daughters who wanted to introduce them to it. And then you saw the ones who were kids who somehow knew about it, who were bringing their parents. And so both ways, which was fun for me to see. And the same thing with the Mego toys, like yourself. We had people around from there, but it was nice to see. It was, a nice line, a nice reception of people that came. It was nice to chat with them a little bit. And, and as I was telling people, these comic book conventions, it's made up of everybody. Everybody thinks, oh, it's just going to be people who just love to be a superhero. No, it's just a whole family now loves it. you'll see a mother, you'll see with the cribs coming in. They got a crib with the baby in there. You know, it's like, and the little baby might be dressed up or not, or not. But I'm just saying, it's like become a whole adventure for a whole family. And you know, and I think that's the same thing with comic books now and the comic book films. You know, it's not just a small group of avid lovers of superheroes. It's entire families who have been enjoying it.
I agree. Um, so as we kind of, wrap up here, you want to give like a, final pitch for Atlas Comics, what you guys are doing,
We're
and where people can find out more about you on the internet or social media.
so we're starting our fan base. We're looking to help get people involved. It'll be nice interaction. We like that. You know, so anybody that wants to come, join us, it would be nice. People can email us. We hear everything. It's so I like interaction. I think it's important. You know, people might have ideas. It's fun. Just write it up. Send it along. Say, hey, I love this. And have you checked out that character? Oh, and by the way, and it's fun to see in everybody's imagination. And we are open for that. We are an interactive universe. Ooh, I like that new thing we've just created. We're the interactive universe.
Very nice. And are you on social? Do you guys have social media that people can follow?
Yeah, I think I am assuming we're under Atlas, or SP Media. So I don't think
Hmm.
it's hard to find if you just go on the internet and put in Atlas. Our company is SP Media, so between the two, I think you find us.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day, and I know that you're out in LA, and I hope you're safe and everything is okay because I know it's a
Yeah,
difficult time out there for
it is.
everybody.
It is. A lot of people have lost their homes, and we feel for so many people. And we're going through all of that. And my son has lost his school, and we're in all the emotions of those things. But we will get through it. As we say, we stay united, stay strong, get through it, and then rebuild. Just like we're doing with Atlas. We'll rebuild Los Angeles even better.
Well, I want to wish you the best of luck, and maybe we can have you back, and
Please,
whenever things are a
please.
little more, in the process, and we can talk more about how things have been going and where things are going.
Good, Chad. We'll stay in touch with each other and we'll keep an open communication. Read some of the comic books, come up with some ideas.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, and you know, like I said, stay safe, and hope everything is good, and best of luck as Atlas, revival of Atlas Comics moves forward.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Chad. And as we say, let's stay in touch with each other.
Definitely. Have a good one.